Item 9 is a resolution directing staff to develop ballot language for quarter-cent sales tax for parks and recreation. All right, so background on this. As we all know, the swimming pool task force has been meeting, or was originally scheduled to meet every other week, once a month. They've ramped up their meeting time. They're meeting on a weekly basis now. One of the charges that the task force has is not only to come back with a recommendation of whatever it is, close down the pool, rebuild the pool, or tear it down and build a new one, but it has also been tasked with come back with a recommendation on how you would pay for it. And so in order for the task force to continue with kind of their deliberations and probably for our own edification, there's been a request to have ballot language created for a quarter-cent sales tax. Now, what's in front of you tonight is something more specific. It's not specific to the swimming pool, but it's more general for parks and recreation. And I think with the understanding that a portion of it would be used if, in fact, we ever do rebuild the pool, that a portion of it might be used for that debt service. How's that for a setup, Mike?
That's pretty good.
All right, it's all yours now.
So the quarter-cent sales tax would not be paying for the pool?
Not in its totality, but it could be in part.
Or all. Who says it couldn't be all? It could.
It could. That's true.
right.
It could, but the
Doesn't
language
have to be.
doesn't restrict it to being specific to the pool.
So is this a pool task force or a Parks and Rec task force?
It's a pool.
Well, what the mayor appointed was a pool task force.
Right. Are
What
they going to
isn't
recommend a quarter-cent sales tax for the pool? Or,
Well, I don't know what they're going to recommend, but what's in front of you is a quarter-cent sales tax for Parks and Rec
okay.
that would have the flexibility in part or in whole to pay for debt service on a new swimming pool.
Okay.
If
well,
that's the recommendation that's made and if the city council were to pass it.
that would go against the pool task force then, if the pool task force says that they won't put forth a quarter-cent sales tax for the pool. Because why would they be recommending part of it go to community center and part of it to parks and stuff like that?
Well, when is their recommendation due? Maybe that's,
That I don't know.
because that kind of,
September 12th is the date that we have to have ballot language to the county. So between now and September 12th, and we would probably have to have you would have to have a special city council meeting. There's no way around it because
Right.
they're not going to be done with their report by next Wednesday.
And they're going to have a complete report by then?
By August 31st. If the city administrator
I don't mind
writes
having a
really well-
special meeting, but as it sits right now, this is not a recommendation by the pool task force
No.
at all.
No, and you may have misunderstood me or I may have misspoke. The pool task force is meeting and will eventually make a recommendation on what to do with the pool.
Mhm.
Shut it down and never reopen it, remodel it, repair it, scrape it, and build a new one. I don't know what they're going to recommend. I think everybody has a suspicion, but I don't know what the recommendation is going to be. They do also, as part of that recommendation, have been tasked with, don't only tell us what you want to do with it, but we would also like, with citizen input, how do you recommend paying for whatever it is you want to do? Now, if they say just shut it down and never reopen it, then there's no need for a funding solution, right? But if they come back. So the point is that given the fact that we are up against this September 12th deadline,
Mhm.
what does this language begin to look like? And there is two issues here. One is, yes, you could write it specific to just the pool. But I also think there is some thinking that if you wrote it that was more in favor of Parks and Rec, that it may elicit more support because it's for community center, it's for Broadmoor, it's for Anderson, it's for Mohawk, and it's also for the pool.
can I ask a couple questions?
Sure.
Number one, does this have a time frame attached to it? I didn't see one. Like a 10-year? It's a 10-year also? If both of those quarter-cent sales tax pass, what would our total sales tax be?
97
It's 8.51. 8.51 as of September
Easiest way to
30th.
go back to
It's
what we have.
8.44 now.
What we have now is 8.775. So
Yeah,
add a quarter
4 on
percent to that, and if both of these pass, that would be your.
Yeah, 9 point,
basically 9%.
Yeah, 9.025.
And where do we fare in sales tax with other cities?
Well, that would depend on the city and whether or not they had CIDs. So if you went to the village shops, they would be ahead of you.
Well, not, we have CID, or we will have CIDs.
Yeah,
So
but-
if you're going to start comparing apples to apples,
But I-
compare CIDs to CIDs.
But we don't have one collecting a CID now, what do they do?
We will next year. Isn't that the expectation?
The expectation, yes.
Okay.
But if I take today, I don't.
Well, that's being disingenuous, Mike.
No, it's not,
Well, you're
because the question is, what is it today? Well, today, on August 1st, ours is going to be 1/4% less. Because the community center comes off.
Yeah, if you want to compare non-CID to non-CID.
Right. And what I'm trying to get to say is that if you think you're going to find one sales tax number that we can apply across it won't be. It'll be all over the board.
And the CID umbrella, I mean, is specific to,
Location in a project.
so, I mean, it's also not citywide.
I agree, that's why I don't think it's
So
fair to
if it's
peg our
the Lane
citywide
4
against-
project, yeah, maybe.
But I don't think it's fair to peg our citywide against someone else's CID. We should be pegging our citywide to their citywide.
Okay. And in Prairie Village, where you only have the Prairie Village shops and then all the other ones are now in a CID, what do I do? Because they have no other retail that's not in a CID and Prairie Village come,
They do.
well, they won't because they have pending ones.
What about 89th and Row?
Okay.
Okay, what's located there then?
There's a strip center there at 89th and Row.
Okay, so if 80% of Prairie
Well,
Village is
okay,
in a
I mean, you're sitting here arguing over stuff. You're cherry picking one city.
No,
on a CID.
so I go to Shawnee
Okay.
and they just approved one Monday,
One what?
CID.
Okay.
And they
Are
have
they collecting
multiples. Yeah, they're gonna start collecting it October 1st.
Roland Park already collects it over there at
Yeah.
Lowe's and Price Chopper. for
So let's
the-
compare CID district to CID
Okay.
district.
Well, I
I mean,
think
that's what Debbie's looking for, is an apples to apples comparison, I think.
Yeah, so you'd have to take really all the possible things that it could be.
Yeah.
Because if I say it's 8.775 and they open it's 9.775, I'm gonna be told that I lied. Because it has a CID district and I should have included it.
Correct.
Okay, so that's all I'm saying. You have to put it all out there. I can't just do the
Yeah.
city because you're gonna go to a city, it's gonna be different all over the place.
So you could say that when Mission Crossings opens up, and
It'll
if
be-
both of these taxes pass,
10.025.
10.025 compared to the village shops, which would be 10.025, or probably 10%, right?
Probably 9.775.
So we'd be higher than village shops if both of these passed.
Correct.
At site to site.
Correct.
But they're location specific.
Correct.
Okay.
The gateway will also have a
Have one.
CID.
But it would not be that at the Target.
It would
Not
not,
be
not
into
today, but I wouldn't be surprised that you see a CID around Target at some point.
Now you're making assumptions.
Yeah.
So, I mean.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I'm just saying, compare apples to apples.
I hear you. All right. Did you get your
I
question
did.
answered?
Thank you.
Okay.
Several ways.
Yes, okay, good. All right. So really what's in front of you is, do you want staff to proceed in putting ballot language together that is specific, that for a 1/4 cent sales tax, that is specific to Parks and Rec?
Can I ask one more question, a caveat?
Yes, you may.
The pool task force comes back with one of two things. Disband the pool, no funding required, or they have a private donor that's going to give us all the money for the pool. You still going to put this 1/4 cent on for the rest of the Parks and Rec stuff? I'm just asking.
How's, is she doing all right?
Debbie's gonna donate it.
Yeah, it's a little warm.
Bill Nichols will donate.
Wow.
I like that. Well, again, I'm one of 9 votes, right? So it'll be up to the city council to decide if we still want to bring it forward. Do I think that there are some compelling reasons to consider a 1/4 cent sales tax that benefits Parks and Rec? Not the least of which Dave asked good questions about our
Subsidy.
our subsidy to the community center, and whether it's 400,000 or 850,000 or some version of that in between, depending upon the way you're counting it, it's significant, and that's just for operations, and it doesn't take into effect all the maintenance
Supplies,
and that
equipment.
will come due. And so can you make an argument for a 1/4 cent sales tax that benefits Parks and Rec? Yes, you can.
No, you
couldn't.
can't.
Well, I can make an argument. You can disagree with me, but I could make an argument.
I
for
do
it.
disagree with you.
And I understand that. But I'm trying to answer Debbie's question of whether or not, if the pool task force comes back and they don't need any funding, is this still something that the city should give some consideration to? And I say, I think it's worth putting on the ballot to give the voters a chance to look at.
You're just jeopardizing the other one you got on there when you put two.
And that's a good question.
On there.
I think
That
that's,
bothers me too.
How does that
Darn
work?
right. It's just gonna, you might not get either one of them that way.
Exactly.
You leave one of them on there the way it should be, and this one you don't want on there now, especially park and rec, period. You do not want that on there, believe me.
I do believe
Take
that
it for
two
what
of
it's
them
worth.
together is a
It's worth
death.
a lot, John.
Thank you.
So they're not alternatives here, like put this one on this year and maybe
Well, this
move one to the
August,
next year?
this August 12th deadline seems so arbitrary. There's no August, or September 12th deadline. That's only if we want this to go on the same exact ballot as the street program. If we want this as a future priority, as a future ballot, if we decide that the time is right based on the full facts, we can put it on any ballot we want in the future. That
We don't know what the recommendation of the task force
This
is.
is so premature.
I think they want to just leave it. It's terrible.
I do too.
Now, Joe.
Well, and that's another factor that bothers me, because we haven't heard from them at all. So, you know, you've got that factor too. We don't know what they're gonna do with the pool.
All valid points?
I think the kids are tired of swimming.
You weren't at the meeting.
I'm not hearing strong support to ask staff to put specific ballot language together at this point.
Well, unfortunately, they've already done it. I think you're hearing strong support not to move forward with it.
Or not at this time.
At this
But the
time.
timing may be the issue, not the issue itself.
I think this would undercut our credibility with the citizens big time.
I
You
do
know, they're
too.
telling us to focus on priorities, priorities, priorities. I'm not hearing this conversation fitting in within what the citizens are telling me and what I'm seeing on the surveys.
And to be clear, what the agenda says is it's a resolution directing staff to develop ballot language. It's not establish, it's to develop.
That's what the agenda said, but the packet that was sent out to us either yesterday or today and the recommendation in front of us has a twofold piece with ballot language, and specifically says that staff went ahead and prepared this ballot language to save time or be efficient while they also did the other one. So the ballot language is in this packet in front of us, even though the agenda, as you point out, indicated that we would not see ballot
And I
language.
mentioned that, I understand all of that, but I mentioned that more because to make you aware of the action that is before us, all right? It's not establishing, right?
Well, can you clarify how it would factor in with the sunset on the community center tax? I'm serious.
Well, the tax on, quarter-cent sales tax on the community center has already sunset.
Correct.
So that one's off the table,
September.
September 30th.
That's what I said.
So I
So
really.
it's a tax that we're not getting, right, that people are not paying toward right now.
Correct.
So-
And the thinking has often been, with that one sunsetting, the idea for a quarter-cent sales tax that supports our 10-year road program, if it were to pass, kind of, it
Even out.
keeps the same rate that it had been. CID notwithstanding, all right, Lawrence?
Thank you.
Now, the other quarter-cent sales tax would obviously be in addition to. And look, I think this is good, healthy dialogue, because I think, John, I don't necessarily disagree with what you're saying, that one could jeopardize the other one. I think that's a valid point. And I think it's something that we ought to talk about. The only thing I'm trying to say is, if you go home and you sleep on this and you feel differently about it, and you don't direct staff to, and I know that you say it's already established, but I'm saying to develop this language and have it, then, are you limiting your options if you decide you want to put it on the ballot? Mr. Ward.
Okay, I'll reiterate what you said. It's a resolution directing staff to prepare the necessary document for consideration. For consideration, okay? Do we want them to consider it? No, I don't. That's simple. If it's yes, then fine, we could talk about it, but there's enough no votes by it, then I think we just ought to drive on and take it to council. Let them decide if they want to or not.
Well, listen,
That's simple, and we're talking all this tax stuff and everything else, it doesn't mean a hoot to a hill of beans. Right now, you're saying for park and rec, and that's gonna be a killer.
and look, John, the other thing too is, this does matter because if the four of us that are on this committee can't come to the way it works,
That's right.
it's not gonna be on the agenda under finance and administration. Somebody could bring it up under new business if they wanted to, obviously. You know how it works, but my point is that if it doesn't come out of this committee with a 3-1 or 4-0 support, the likelihood of it passing in city council is not
Okay.
very good. So that's the reason why we're having this conversation.
I would recommend we take it to the council, and mine is no.
All right.
Ask the other three people then, who's on the committee, what do they recommend?
Well, it's me and you, it's Miss Crane, it's Miss Grosskopf.
Okay.
So you're recommending it goes to the council,
He's not
but you're
here.
not for it?
I'm not for it.
He does not want to bring it to the council.
Just forget it. Yeah, the consideration, it says there, document for consideration.
saying you
Just tell them,
recommend
He doesn't want to
forget
take,
about
he
it.
doesn't want to take it to
Is that what
council.
you're agreeing?
I will agree with that.
Okay.
I honestly, at some point, would have been more comfortable. We took that sunset sales tax and put it with park and rec. To me, those went, that's apples to apples, and then the transportation one may be separate, but that's not the issue at hand. So-
Debbie, it's interesting you bring that up, because I was waiting to make a comment just to the opposite of that. I think, there's been a lot of talk amongst this council, going all the way back to last year, about sales tax for roads, streets, tough, where the priorities are, what should we be doing? And I think it sends a strong message to our citizens to say, for the last 10 years, we've been collecting a quarter-cent sales tax for parks and rec. Our citizens are telling us, focus on the basic priorities. And what we're putting in front of the citizens is saying, in my opinion, this is Lawrence speaking, you guys can disagree or agree, what I'm saying as a council member by supporting the sales tax for streets is that I agree with you that quarter cent that has been going to parks and rec needs to go to streets. That's the priority. Let's get that taken care of. And then after we have that taken care of, we can discuss where parks and rec falls next. And I think that's a compelling argument.
Well, and the only clarification that I would
Sure.
offer, Lawrence, is
Clarification.
that quarter-cent sales tax was tied specifically, if I understand it correctly,
To do it.
to debt, to retire a
To
bond.
debt, to the
It was-
expansion.
No, but it was not tied to Parks and Rec. We couldn't do anything we wanted with
The
that.
community
money.
center.
But that's different. That was tied to debt to pay for the expansion of the community center, period.
Correct.
You couldn't use that money for Anderson.
No, I understand
You couldn't
that.
use it for Mohawk.
I
You couldn't
understand
use it
that.
for trails. You couldn't use it for any of that
I
stuff.
understand.
This would allow you to do
I
that. So
understand that.
it's not apples to apples. All I'm saying, I hear your point, but I'm just saying, right? You understand what I'm saying?
No, I understand exactly what you're saying. And if this city were to decide that at some point we wanted a sales tax for Parks and Rec, I would agree with you that something that could be more general, assuming we have a clear understanding what those general priorities are, is better than specific to the community center. When it goes to those two comparisons, I agree with you. But what I'm saying today, and I think you've heard me, and I think you're in agreement, I can't tell, is that by saying that we're done with the quarter cent for the community center, which is within the Parks and Rec arena, and we are redirecting that quarter cent to where we believe the number one priority is, which is our streets, I think that sends a compelling message to the voters. I think the voters are asking us to take that.
I understand the point. I understand the point. I do.
All right then.
Will, anything you want to contribute?
He's beaming from ear to
Connie,
ear.
No,
anything?
I'm in 100% of everything everybody said, except for you, Dave.
Well, let the record
That's
show
not good.
it was a
Dave,
1-3.
You'll clarify your comments and bring it
Yeah.
up.
What's that?
With all due respect.
Well, that's all right. I mean, look, we don't have to agree all the time, right, John?
Right.
That's the first time I've ever seen you
It's
be.
fine.
But, I'm not objecting to do it, I just don't think the timing on the same ballot, that's a concern.
No, and that's fine. That's fine.
We just need to focus on our core issues right now, and our core issues are what we have been talking about, streets and infrastructure. And once we get that in place, I think we can talk about some other issues, and that would be, parking lot.
Skateboard.